For head teachers, handling interviews effectively is critical for developing a successful teaching staff. We've brought together a group of highly experienced former head teachers to discuss their interview tips for hiring an NQT. First, let's meet the team. Alan Key, now retired, has 36 years' experience in education, with 15 as a head teacher. Peter Lawrence is Development Director at a trust of 8 schools. He has over 30 years' experience in education, 13 of them as a head teacher. Colin Richardson, also retired, has a total of 41 years' experience in education, with 16 spent as a head. Our team of former head teachers has received an email from new head Ken.
I've got a vacancy in the science department. Ideally, I'd like to have filled it with an experienced teacher, but there's been a shortage of candidates, so I'm looking for an NQT. My concern is that an NQT may not be as skilled as a more experienced teacher in handling some of the behaviour challenges we've got at the school, whilst keeping high standards of teaching and learning. What advice can you give me on interviewing techniques to make sure I get the right NQT?
So what advice can we offer Ken around the recruitment of an NQT?
Any kind of an interview, especially if you are a newly qualified teacher looking for your first job, is a stressful experience. So whilst there has to be an element of formality in the process, I would always want to try and make the whole interview as informal as possible and as relaxed as possible. An attempt really to open up a dialogue between the panel and yourself and the panel and the candidate. In that way you will find out more of their personality and characteristics within the 30 minutes or whatever you allow for it as the formal part of the process.
The panel's first piece of advice is to aim for a friendly, informal dialogue.
I would always want to have seen them in a structured situation in the classroom as part of the interview process. You can learn a lot about how they're able to analyse what has just gone on in the classroom and where it might have gone better, or equally how well they actually thought it went.
I think it's that we always made them teach a lesson, but also follow the lesson. We asked the pupils their views, because they're very incisive. They're used to teachers, and they can bring something to the table which we couldn't spot, which they can spot about the characteristics and what they liked about each of the candidates.
Yeah, an interview with sort of a representative group of the student council was always part of the interview process at my school, whatever level, or whatever type of appointment, and I always found that to be a really valuable input into the process.
The panel's next tip is to see the NQT in action in the classroom and get student feedback.
It's certainly a two-way process, and I think from the word go you have to make it quite clear what the school is about, the context in which to be working, so the candidate has the opportunity to say, well, thank you very much, I don't want to work here. There might be a strong candidate, but they have to fit in and they have to understand what the school is about and the context in which they're working, and that's very important. It is a two-way process, not the school doing it to them, but you're doing it together to get the right candidate for the post.
And at the end of the day, that's fairer on the candidates, and it's, as well as being fair for the school, it's actually fairer on the candidate or candidates if you have more than one person that you're interviewing for the same post, that they've gone through the same process, that they feel it's fair, you feel it's fair, and you've had the opportunity to explore every avenue, practical and otherwise, and come to a conclusion, taking the bigger picture, the whole picture into account.
You have to ensure that they will fit into your school and to your department, because 6 months out it might not be the right place for them, so you have to really, through the process of appointing the NQT, find out whether they will fit and whether that's the kind of person you want to work in your school.
The panel's next piece of advice is to be honest about the school and the role, and to give the NQT the chance to say no.
Also, with an NQT, to remember that an NQT isn't a finished article, and that a lot will depend on the quality of the school's own induction programme, won't it? In terms of the support that the NQT could expect. And a really great opportunity to mould an NQT and learn from their enthusiasm and also help to support them in their behaviour management. And I suppose we'd all expect an NQT to be asking ahead what what the induction programme was like and practical ways in which the school would support that NQT's development.
The panel's final tip is to see the interview process as an opportunity to examine induction and support systems for NQTs.
In my experience, a good NQT can bring a lot to the school in terms of enthusiasm, so I wouldn't be put off by that. Yeah.
But I don't think we're saying that an NQT couldn't be the very best appointment for that role, and experience shouldn't always be the decisive factor, should it?
If you can get the right person, the right newly qualified teacher, I think that will bring a lot to his science department and to his school in general.